Continuing with national security theme, as many of you saw this afternoon, the President signed the National Defense Authorization Act. This legislation, which was approved with bipartisan support, represents an important milestone in the President's plan to rebuild our military and bolster our national security. For the first time in 7 years, we are increasing rather than shrinking the size of our forces. This NDAA also provides our military service members with the largest pay increase they've seen in 8 years. To put into historical context, it authorizes one of the largest defense spending increases since the days of Ronald Reagan. Previous administrations sadly oversaw deep cuts to our armed forces with serious implications for our military readiness and capabilities. This hindered the fight against ISIS and other enemies of freedom and made our people less safe. In signing this bill today, the President once again made it clear that we are serious about enhancing military readiness, expanding and modernizing our forces, and providing our incredible men and women downrange with the tools they need to do what they do best, fight and win. President Trump also called on obstructionist Democrats in Congress to stop threatening to shut down the government. As the President said, at this time of grave global threats, Congress should send a clean funding bill to his desk that fully funds our great military. We certainly hope that will happen, and we look forward to that taking place. And with that, I will take your questions. Cecilia.
Thank you, Sarah. The President said today that Senator Gillibrand would do anything for campaign contributions. Many people see this as a sexual innuendo. What is the President suggesting?
I think that the President is very obvious. This is the same sentiment that the President has expressed many times before when he has exposed the corruption of the entire political system. In fact, he's used similar terminology many times when talking about politicians of both parties, both men and women, and certainly in his campaign to drain the swamp. The system is clearly broken. It's clearly rigged for special interest, and this President is someone that can't be bought, and it's one of the reasons that he's President today.
So you're saying that this quote, Senator Gillibrand would do anything, is a reference to campaign contributions in Washington, the swamp. This has nothing to do with her being a female. What is he alleging would happen behind closed doors with her?
He's not alleging anything. He's talking about the way that our system functions as it is, that politicians repeatedly beg for money. That's not something new, and that comment, frankly, isn't something new. If you look back at past comments that this President has made, he's used that same terminology many times in reference to men. There's no way that this is sexist at all. This is simply talking about a system that we have that is broken, in which special interests control our government. And I don't think that there's probably many people that are more controlled by political contributions than the senator that the President referenced. Steve?
Does the President want Roy Moore to be seated in the Senate if he wins tonight, and does he plan to call him tonight?
In terms of calls, I'm not aware that anything is scheduled, win or lose. In terms of being seated, I can't speak on a hypothetical, certainly not one that could potentially influence an election one way or the other due to the Hatch Act. John?
Sarah, does the President agree with his outside legal counsel that a special prosecutor should be appointed to look into the goings-on at the Department of Justice during the election campaign in 2016, since the revelation about Bruce Ohr, the former Associate Deputy Attorney General?
I think it's something that certainly causes a lot of concern, not just for the President and the administration, but I think probably for all Americans, and something that if we're going to continue to investigate things, let's look at something where there's some real evidence and some real proof of wrongdoing, and this looks pretty bad, and I think it's something we should certainly look at. Dave?
So would he support the appointment of a special prosecutor to look into this?
I haven't asked him that directly, but I know that he has great concern about some of the conduct that's taken place, and something that we certainly would like to see looked at. Dave?
Thanks, Sarah. Congressional leaders are saying that they have no plans to reimpose sanctions on Iran by the deadline tomorrow that the President initiated back in October when he decertified Iran's compliance with the nuclear deal. Is the White House okay with this no action? And if so, where are the teeth in the President's move to decertify them from compliance?
Look, the administration continues to make encouraging progress with Congress to fix the U.S.-Iran deal and address long-term proliferation issues. There was actually no deadline to act by this week, as the administration did not ask that Congress introduce legislation to reimpose JCPOA-related sanctions. Jordan?
Thanks, Sarah. Senator Grassley said that he's advised the White House to reconsider the nomination of Jeff Mateer to the federal court in Texas and Brett Talley in Alabama. Has the president spoken to Senator Grassley about his concerns, and does the president plan to pull back those nominations?
I'm not sure if they've spoken directly. I'll have to check and circle back with you. Matthew?
Thanks, Sarah. Bashar al-Assad and Rodrigo Duterte both recently have used the phrase fake news to dismiss damaging reports about their regimes. And a state official in Myanmar recently said that the Muslim minority Rohingya don't exist and added it's fake news. Is the White House concerned at all about authoritarian regimes adopting this phrase, fake news, to try to delegitimize the press? And does President Trump bear any responsibility for the popularization of this phrase among some world leaders?
I think the White House is concerned about false and inaccurate information being pushed out and to mislead the American people. I think I made that clear yesterday. In terms of other leaders, I'd have to look at their comments to be more specific on what they've said. But our concern is making sure that the information that the people receive in this country is fair and accurate, and when it isn't, that it's corrected in the same fashion in which it was first presented when it was wrong, which is very rarely the case. Kristen?
The term fake news, that
Sorry?
doesn't, when you hear autocrats using the term fake news to describe events that reflect poorly on their regimes, that doesn't cause concern here?
Look, I'm not going to speak to specifics of another country when I don't know the details. What I can talk about are the problems that we have in this country with inaccuracies that happen frequently within news stories. And so that I feel comfortable speaking about. Without that information and that detail in front of me, I don't want to weigh in too deeply. Crystal?
Thank you. The president tweeted today that the accusations against him are false, fabricated stories of women who I don't know and or have never met, fake news. And yet the reality is he's pictured with a number of the women who have accused him of the misconduct. So do you concede that that part of his statement is not true?
The president was referencing the three individuals that were part of a press conference yesterday, and simply stating that you don't know someone means that you don't have a relationship with them.
Of all of his accusers, because they're...
Correct. He was referencing the three from yesterday.
And Sarah, members of Congress have called for an investigation into these accusations. If President Trump is confident that they are not true, would he support such an investigation?
Look, the president has answered these questions. He has spoken to these accusations and denied and pushed that they are all false and fabricated accusations. Frankly, I think if Congress wants to spend time investigating things, they should probably focus on some of the things that the American people would really like them to investigate, like how to secure our borders, how to defeat ISIS, how to pass tax reform that actually impacts them. If you look at the issues and poll after poll after poll taken by a number of the outlets in this room and pushed out regularly, the issues that are top mind, number one, every single time: the economy, jobs, national security, immigration, healthcare. Yet we never talk about those issues. In fact, 90% of the coverage that is happened. Hold on, I'll let you finish. I'm going to finish this statement. 90% of the coverage that comes out of the media is negative and rarely covers those topics. And those are the things that the American people want to talk about. If Congress wants to investigate something, I think that they should look at some of the priorities of the people that they actually represent.
Discussed in businesses all across the country. There have been a number of people who've been fired over this. So why not allow this congressional investigation to go forward, and the president, if he's confident in the accusations being
The
false?
president has addressed these concerns. He's addressed them directly. You guys spent months talking about them on the campaign trail, and the American people voted for this president. They have confidence in this president, and they wanted him to lead our country, and they wanted him to focus on things like the economy, focus on healthcare, focus on fixing our broken tax system, focus on fixing our borders, and focus on national security. That's what we're here to do. That's what we're focused on. These questions have been asked and answered, and we're ready to move forward and focus on the questions of the day that the American people have. April?
Gillibrand owed an apology for the misunderstanding of the president's tweet this morning, because many, including the senator, thinks that it's about sexual innuendos.
I think only if your mind is in the gutter would you have read it that way. And so no, Hunter.
No, it's not. When what he said was open, and it was not mined in the.
He's obviously talking about political partisan games that people often play and the broken system that he's talked about repeatedly. This isn't new. This isn't a new sentiment. This isn't new terminology. He's used it several times before. As I said a few minutes ago, he's used it several times before, referencing men of both parties, in fact. And so I think that if you look back at the past comments he's made, it was very clear what his reference was. Hunter?
So, looking at this issue with the system, the president gave almost $8,000 to Senator Gillibrand over the years. His daughter also gave her $2,000. What specifically did they get for these contributions that she was offering?
Look, I think oftentimes what you do, you're getting access. A member of Congress will take your phone call, they'll take your meeting, and if you're driving something as a businessman that the president may or may not have been driving at any particular point, you can talk to that individual about it, and sometimes they carry your water. That's the reason that we have a broken system. That's a reason that often special interests control our government more than the people do. And that's one of the reasons that this president ran to be president. And it's one of the top reasons I think that he won and that he's sitting in the Oval Office today and Hillary Clinton's not, because he couldn't be bought, and everybody knew that she could because they'd seen it time and time again.
Is he admitting that he bought access in a corrupt way?
Look, I think he is admitting that he's participating in a rigged system. He said that on the campaign trail. He knows how the system works. I think it would be disingenuous for anybody not to understand that, but at least this president is being honest about the process and his willingness to actually fix it and drain the swamp. Mara?
So, Kirsten Gillibrand called for him to resign, and he says over and over again that he's a counterpuncher. So the next day after she does that, he wakes up and you're saying that he's tweeting about the campaign finance system. Is that what you're saying?
I'm talking about the fact that she's controlled by special interests. I'm talking about the fact she's a wholly owned subsidiary of people that donate to her campaign. She's a puppet for Chuck Schumer. I'm talking about a number of issues that she has, none of which make her an independent individual, but more somebody that is controlled by people that help donate money to her cause. That's simply all I'm stating.
Finance reform does the president want?
Look, the president's been talking about the need for us to put a stronger ban on lobbyists participating in the government process. We've taken a stronger ethics pledge under this administration than previous administrations. I think those are some of the first steps and something that we're going to continue working on over the next 7 years. John?
Thanks a lot, Sarah. You're familiar with the president's tweets. He tweets pretty often. In this particular,
I've noticed that too.
Yeah, a little bit. In this particular case, his criticism of Senator Gillibrand was very personal. Why must you criticize in such personal terms? He called a sitting elected U.S. senator a lightweight. Why go after her in such a personal manner?
I don't think that's all that personal. I mean, if you want to talk about personal, look at the comments that she's made about this president over the last several months. Look, the president is always going to be somebody who responds. We've said that many times before, and he's simply talking about a system that doesn't work for the citizens of this country, and he wants to fix it. Trey?
Thanks, Sarah. Two quick questions for you. One following up on John's question from earlier about a second special counsel. Does the president have confidence in the FBI as it exists today?
Look, the president has confidence in Director Wray and his ability to clean up some of the mess left behind by his predecessor. I know I've addressed that before, and he certainly has confidence in the rank-and-file members of the FBI.
Follow up on foreign policy. Today, Bloomberg has an article out about the Trump administration encouraging Saudi Arabia to consider bids from U.S. companies as it relates to building nuclear reactors. Does the president see this as an opportunity to bring up human rights in Yemen during these talks with Saudi Arabia?
I'm not aware of those specific conversations in this process, so I would have to ask and certainly get back to you. Take one last question, Margaret.
Thank you. H.R. McMaster gave some really interesting remarks at a luncheon earlier today, and he spoke in really strong terms about China and Russia. He said they were undermining the international order and stability and ignoring the sovereign rights of their neighbors and the rule of law. He went on to talk about Russia in particular. He didn't use the words election meddling, but he talked about subversion, disinformation, propaganda, and basically pitting people against each other to try to create crises of confidence. So what I wanted to know is, does the president agree with all of General McMaster's statements, and is that a foreshadowing of a national security strategy that will take a harder tack on Russia and China than the administration has so far?
Look, I think we've been very hard on Russia from the beginning. There have been sanctions. We've increased energy exportation from this country, and we've done things to put pressure on Russia, asking them to engage in a bigger and greater way on some of the common enemies that we face. In terms of like a rundown, I haven't had a chance to sit down with the president and go detail by detail, but General McMaster certainly is someone who understands and knows the president's feelings and our relationships with foreign partners, and something that we certainly feel confident in him speaking about. Thanks so much, guys.
Get the president out here.